The nicest venue spot I've ever been to. The view was just incredible.
With the exception of your wedding, correct?
Well, of course.
Where was the venue?
It was in Shoreham.
Oh, nice.
It's her family's farm, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I'll give it one more minute, but I think I sent out this invite for the meeting and got immediately, 20 responses, automatic, like I am on vacation through all of August. So
Yeah.
there may not be many people coming this morning. But thank you all for showing up bright and early. um,
Yeah, and,
and
and in the future we'll avoid August. It just fell at a weird time this year with resurrecting this board, but seems like most state employees are on vacation this month.
yeah, that certainly seems to be the case from at least automatic email responses. I know that Melissa is at a CTE conference. The Take the Helm conference, I think is the name of it. So yeah, Lyle was talking to me about it because he was I guess formerly going to that conference when he was running Stafford. So it looks like we are not going to have a quorum. So everything that would be done officially is going to be done for informational purposes. We have Rhea and I think she's done. But Wendy, if it is it okay if I kind of facilitate the meeting?
Yeah, I'm totally 100% okay with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So call the meeting to order unofficially, 8:33 a.m. And agenda here, it's going to probably just be a pretty brief meeting. We were hoping that we'd hear back from the Department of Labor grant we've submitted by this point, but reaching out to them, it seems like it may be more like early September that we'll hear back, which is great, but also it's going to be an extremely fast turnaround for going from not knowing whether there may or may not be a massive project going on this year to then potentially having a large program starting up in October. So there's not a ton of wiggle room there. But anyway, because we haven't heard yet, this meeting will be pretty brief.
Yeah,
So,
sorry, Greg, if I can just add for clarity. So the Department of Labor grant is the U.S. Department of Labor grant, not to be confused with Vermont Department of Labor. So
yes, yeah.
so it's them that's delaying, not us.
Yeah, I was not trying to. Yeah,
No,
good clarification there.
Yeah, no, I know that you were, but just for those of us that don't necessarily know the difference, just wanted to add that clarity.
So we are going to, I believe, move on from approving or not approving the August 13th agenda, as we do not have a quorum to do so. And then the June 11th minutes here are provided for informational purposes. Fascinating minutes, as you may see. And then we have any public comments right now from the public out there. Hearing none, we're gonna move on. And unfortunately, we don't have financials to share either right now, but because MK is still finishing up closing the books for FY24. That should be wrapped up by next week. She's currently on vacation, and then I'm gonna email those out to everyone and post them publicly once they are available to be posted. So slight delay on that. And then really, I think the best use of our time, because we haven't actually received notice of yes or no on the proposal is just to briefly review what actually got submitted to the U.S. Department of Labor in terms of this grant application. So this was shown in an earlier meeting in a draft form, but it's been changed a little bit. And this basically shows a model for 1 year of the project activities. So as you can see, it would start up pretty quickly in October with initial outreach toward getting a cohort together from both students in the schools who are rising seniors, beginning their senior year of high school, also a smaller population of youth who have dropped out of school, and then a population of migrants and refugees who are in the region transitioning into the workforce. So the main focus would be on outreach in the schools, but there would be also these other populations that we'd work with through our partners. And that, again, would be a pretty quick transition, but this program, being a 3-year program, would build in cohort size each year. So the first year would be a kind of a pilot with a very small group of people, just as there are going to be a lot of kinks to work out in getting all of this up and running. But that green section at top would be October through April would all be outreach and enrollment. And then April and May, this kind of aligns with the Southern Vermont Career Month spirit, that having that cohort in place and then matching them with an employer who might want to take them on for training pathways into the summer. So then phase 3, which is in orange, is a phase that would be executed by Stafford through a sub-grant. And this would be a career readiness boot camp, 1 to 2 week program in the early summer. And we've been talking with their director of adult education about how they can do that, but they're excited to be a part of this if they end up receiving this grant successfully. So, and the final piece in pink would be the on-the-job training through employers. So this would be a 5 to 10 week technical training that the grant would pay the wages the participants for. And additionally, we've allocated some funding for administrative costs for each employer who'd be involved with that, because there'll be some additional onboarding and other ancillary costs. So the culmination here is that hopefully after a success, if the participant can go through all of this, they get to the end of the summer, then they are not guaranteed a job, but hopefully they can be guaranteed an interview. And if that interview is successful, the employer already knows what their work ethic is like, then after that point, then they could potentially receive an offer. So that is the finalized version of what we've been talking about for the last several months. Does anyone have any questions on that 1 year, kind of basic programmatic timeline? I have a couple more slides to just kind of break down the year 1, year 2, year 3, and how that builds up. But this is really the kind of basic core of what this project would look like.
Can I ask a question in regards to when they're doing the on-the-job training
Yeah.
piece of it? So it has a rate been set, or are you going to work with whatever businesses might take someone and whatever their entry-level training rate would be, that's what's being reimbursed, or have you even thought about that?
I believe we budgeted for, and I can dig through the project narrative to find out the exact number, but I believe it was $16 an hour is budgeted over a 40-hour work week for 5 weeks. Is what was thrown in there in terms of defining the budget for that. And the U.S. Department of Labor hopes that each job that a participant is being prepared for will pay at least $15 an hour. That's their target. So,
I'm just being selfish because right now I have 3 openings that I'm going. I know I'm going to have more next year, and it's significantly more than that. Yeah. So that's why I was like, could an employer supplement at their higher rate. I mean,
I'm sure that, yeah.
take the on-the-job training wage, to get reimbursed, but then if it's, say it's $23 an
Yeah.
hour, that
Mhm.
the person would actually receive 23, but 16 of that would come from the grant, and then the balance would come from the employer.
I would hope that would be totally fine. I don't know if I could answer it right
Okay.
now. I
I
think
just
that
thought I'd
if we end up
ask.
receiving the grant, there'll be a project officer from the U.S. Department of Labor who would kind of be involved in uh answering all those questions as we get the
Okay.
program running. And that's the big reason why we want the first year to be as small of a cohort of people as possible, because there's going to be so many questions about each, you know, specific situation that comes up.
Yeah.
So, but I would hope and I would think that that would be, you know, encouraged if anything. Yeah. Anyone else have any questions about, you know, the kind of 1 year model timeline? Okay, I will move on then. So this is a look at what the actual first year of the program would be like. And the big, I think, monkey wrench here in this is that because we're going to be receiving notice of this so uh, late in the game, like we're hoping to hold or help organize a, you know, career and financial readiness fair, financial reality fair this fall. It is piloted in one school, but that involves a lot of work and a lot of prep work that probably should already be happening right now if we're going to, you know, successfully execute that. Um, this grant does not hold you entirely to, you know, keeping this timeline, but they want you to keep the timeline. So this would be some piece that we'd have to kind of either do a very light version or, you know, maybe push it back to later in the year to accommodate it. And I think Wendy, you might have better input on that.
Yeah, so the financial reality fair, it's actually not as much of a lift anymore as you think, just because we've been doing this already in the Bennington area, and like the program itself is actually already built. We already have all the materials. We even have the registration form tool that helps students identify what occupation they want to run through the financial reality fair with, you know, which occupation they want to test drive. Like that is already built into a registration form that has a lot of back end data connected. So we're actually in pretty good shape for the financial reality fair, even if we wanted to do a fall launch. I think the bigger ask is really of the schools, in whether or not they can set aside a chunk of time to support their students to attend. I think that's probably the bigger question around around that than all of the coordination itself on the event, because I feel like it's kind of a pack and go model at this point. It's really easy to just dust off the cobwebs and bring it right back.
Well, that's fantastic to hear that. In terms of planning it on that side of things, that it could potentially be put together pretty quickly.
Yep.
I'm hoping that holding it in one school, you know, with, you know, a smaller audience rather than bringing in a region-wide event would help a little bit. But I think even then, like you're saying, it's going to be tough for a school to adjust their, you know, schedules that are already probably pretty concrete at that point to accommodate it. But I'm sure there's some, you know, solution there. But what I've been playing with in my head is whether or not we should be notifying a school right now, working with them to just, you know, set that up no matter whatever happens with this grant. Um, but it's a tough
Yeah.
question to answer.
Yeah, that was sort of I was going to save that question for the end, and we can certainly talk about that after, but there's some of these programs or events, I guess, that are tied into the proposal that I wonder if those are things that are still going to happen, even if the US Department of Labor grant doesn't come through. So, in the financial reality fair is definitely one of those. The other thought around that too is if the fall is too aggressive for the schools, perhaps bumping it out to just after the first of the year, we do run into, is it going to be a snow day? Is it going to be a snow day? What happens in a snow day? But maybe even just planning that a little bit further out might be easier for the schools, or even planning it for maybe even in December, more towards very last part of this year. So I don't know. I think there's a lot, but I feel like that stuff that if the schools are going to engage, or a school is going to engage, having that conversation probably now would be needed so that it is put into their planning map, and really doing it based on what is most convenient to supporting them, and how we can support their students. Because really, we could do it just about any time.
I think I'll reach out to I think Rutland High School or Otter Valley might be the best bets to see if they would be potentially interested in you know having an event like that in December.
Yeah, or even both. I mean, if it was at Rutland High School, potentially you've got potential connection to Stafford students as well. And then maybe Otter Valley's already sending some students down to Stafford, and maybe Otter Valley can bring more students down just to participate in this. And I also am not sure what the target age for this would be up here in the Bennington area. We used to do it primarily with juniors. Was it juniors? Yeah, it was. No, maybe it was seniors we did it with. And then we changed it to be juniors and seniors. No, actually, I'm sorry. I'm going to retract all. It was sophomores. We used to do it with sophomores. And we found that sophomores were too young to really engage in that. And so we we started doing it post-COVID, and we brought it back to juniors and seniors. And we're sort of pushing in the Bennington area to try to make the juniors mandatory participants, and then seniors optional, with the thought that it's possible that seniors who attended as juniors want to come back and actually test it out with a different occupation that they're exploring. We actually found that that was something that happened this past go around, because it was our second year of doing it, where we actually had a lot of seniors that came through and said, oh yeah, I did this last year, but I didn't like my result. And so I've been rethinking my occupation. And they wanted to test it out with a completely different occupation, which was a beautiful thing to see. And we were like, yeah, it's exactly the hope, and why we wanted seniors to kind of go back through and really figure that out. So
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I think that's what personally I would be highly in favor of, be having both juniors and seniors involved, especially if they can end up going through the program twice over the course of 2 years.
yep.
Test driving different occupations.
Yep.
Karen, who works with RPC, said that her daughter had that happen when she was in school, and the financial reality fair is being run here in the Rutland region, and she said it was really helpful for helping figure out exactly what careers are viable and which aren't, and how things like how all your finances influence your life. So
Right, exactly.
seems like
Yeah.
a great thing. And I can begin working with Rutland High School to see if that can be set up for late in the fall. Yeah. Would you in Bennington, are you working with primarily the guidance department in each school to, set up these programs, or is it dependent on school to school?
Yeah, it's actually, so it's sort of a mix. So Mount Anthony is our county seat school, and it's actually been one of the assistant principals that we've been working primarily with. Actually, it's been two assistant principals, and then it's been their work-based learning coordinator at Mount Anthony, and then Burn Burton sends students down, and Southwest Tech sends students to it. And so with Southwest Tech, it is guidance. It's the head of their guidance department, and then at Burn Burton, it's also sort of a work-based learning type coordinator that participates. So it's great, if you can get an administrator on board, that would be awesome, because they're sort of the the decision makers a lot of times with, what a school can and can't do. But at the very least, if you can get work-based learning coordinators or somebody from guidance that can sort of speak on behalf of the school, I think that's the more ideal. And of course, we're lucky we've got, Melissa is part of this. So, if not her, I'm sure that she would assign like Darlene McGlory or somebody from Stafford to participate.
That sounds fantastic. Yeah, I can, begin that process in the next few weeks. So it seems like it would be completely rude to do it last minute and try to work with the schools when they already have everything, in full swing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and Greg, if you need me to jump in on any of those meetings with you, I'm more than happy to do it. So,
yeah, thank you. I might reach out to you for more information about
yep,
all the process involved.
sounds good.
Um, so I want to just briefly touch on the, year 2 and year 3 kind of pieces of this program. Although it's a ways away. But essentially, they build upon the first year with the larger cohorts. There's not too much of a difference between each year in terms of the basic timeline and model. One thing we put in here is, having an employer hiring needs survey during year 2. So kind of doing a bit of a further analysis on, what was working about the program and what isn't, and how can it be improved going into year 3. And but generally, it's essentially the same, except larger scale. And same with year 3. And you know, it, ideally, we would seek out some kind of more sustainable funding for Stafford to continue executing their part of this program at that point. But hopefully, the program will basically demonstrate that this model of training at the end of the senior year of high school that then runs into on the job training over the summer is a workable and viable way of encouraging people to get connected to local employers. So that's the ultimate goal there. But really, each year just builds upon the previous one. So,
Is there a tracking model? I'm not using probably not the right word. So is there a way to sort of follow each cohort of students who, one, have been placed, and then to monitor their success, whether they stay with the initial employer that they went to, or were they able to move on and get to another, you know,
I think the for the purposes of the grant itself, I think the U.S. Department of Labor wants to know, afterward. So I think they would require that, I guess, the RPC follow up with individuals, 6 months or a year after they have exited the program. I don't think that, they're definitely, as far as I know, the participants are not, legally bound to
Right,
just
give
tell
them
them,
feedback.
at that point. But, I believe that they are trying to have that kind of data long term as to, what's the success of the program in the short term, did people get jobs? And then what's the success in the long term? Did they stay at the job or,
Or move
what's the
to
ultimate
a
outcome?
different job
Yeah,
that, we're successful. I just wondered, because, you do all of this, and then also feedback for us as the group who's trying to do this, feedback on, where were we successful? How did we help
yeah,
cohort A secure that job? And by the way, find out it was their dream job, or, get them started. And then also where we may not have, we're in a world where one size doesn't fit all anymore. So, are there tweaks that maybe we would need to make in year 2 or potentially in year 3, or building on after the grant is done?
yeah,
What what do we do to ensure that it can keep going on with like what Wendy's doing down in Bennington?
yeah. I mean, I believe there's some flexibility for, modifying the program as it gets, larger and as it evolves. And I think that hopefully we can do that as much as possible to, make it as effective as we can. I think that from some of the conversations earlier this year in some of these meetings, a big theme was, building out both like career outreach and awareness and also hands-on activities for younger youth. So they already kind of have an idea by the time they're in their junior or senior year, what they like and what they don't like, and what they're generally interested in, and how that connects to, careers around them.
Right.
But I think that with the different guardrails that are put on a grant program like this, where there's 50 pages of different things that tell you like what you can and can't do, like it would be almost too much to also be
Put that extra layer on.
having, unfortunately, through this specific funding mechanism, we won't be able to also target 8th graders and 9th graders as to
Right.
like having that early career awareness. But I do see a lot of schools trying to do that and doing it successfully. So I think it's something that a lot of people are aware of. Yeah, but it's definitely a gap there. Anyone else have any questions? I know it's a brief meeting. I also know that there wasn't, any exciting news. So I really appreciate all of you being here. If there are no other questions or announcements, I think we can wrap up. Happy to see you all, and I hope to have good news in the next few weeks.
We don't have our next meeting till October 1st. Do you want to reserve something in case you do get the grant? We have to start jumping around.
That may be a good idea, yeah. But I'm not sure if we would easily be able to find the
Right.
best date right now.
Right.
I'll definitely be reaching out about both that and also news on a potential financial reality fair in December in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
So yeah, thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Good job. We'll see you later.
Yeah.
Good luck, Devin.
Thank you. See you, Ellen.
Bye.